Hello, my name is Lorcan Neary. I'm a data strategist with about 25 years of commercial experience. And classically, I normally function as a data architect stroke solution architect. In new money, I guess I'd be defined as a full stack designer developer, and I kind of occupy the role of data scientist stroke and data engineer. So I'm going to cover these 8 topics, hopefully over the next 10 minutes or so or less. So, given an overview, I'm told you what I am, and I'm going to now highlight a few of my um, of few jobs that I've done in the past that have kind of made me really grow. Give you a little bit of background about myself. So, I started working way back in the late 80s. And initially, I thought I'd like to maybe become an actuary. And I spent about a year and a half, 2 years working in Prudential. And then I went and I got involved in mixed order mainframes when I was there. And I kind of wanted to get more involved in physics and maths rather than statistics. So I did a double honours BSc in maths and physics and an MA in Trinity College in Dublin. And then I came over to London and I was working in Infinity Financial Technology, which was a derivative trading and risk management software house. As a C++ programmer for about 4 years. And while I was there, I was also in King's College in London trying to kick off a PhD in neural networks and kind of stopped doing the neural network stuff and persisted with the Infinity stuff. And during my time at Infinity, I became very interested in databases and how data was structured. And they had a wonderful data model underpinning their entire application suite. So I spent a good deal of time in Mountain View in California, really understanding how all that hung together. And it really started my entire fascination with all things data. The next, that was from 96 through to about 2000, midway through 2000. And that was the last full-time job I had. And ever since then, I've been a contractor for the last 20 years. And I've been thankfully fully employed and sometimes overemployed. Next big ticket item was in 2001. I worked for this data warehousing consultancy called Lateral, and I did a job in Vodafone in Newbury, where I ported their entire Vodafone's entire European base of CDRs, cold data records, of which there were literally billions for the last 5 years, and ported them over into a repository that I designed using a tool called Ab Initio. And yeah, the next big thing after that, so that was kind of ETL and data modeling. And the next big thing after that was I did a full enterprise data warehouse implementation at Digicel from 2003 to 2005. It was a greenfield site. I did the data discovery. I set up how they handled the reference data. I also set up all of the ETL streams, the schedules. I also defined all of the data models that would get populated, the landing, the transformation, and the final system of record schemas. I also designed all of the aggregation layers and all of the OLAP cubes, so we did anything by anything analysis. Plus, I put in place most of the reporting architecture as well, and the visualization architecture. And then from 2006 to 2008, I worked at IBM. I wanted to work at IBM because they were the founders of data warehousing. And I got headhunted by a guy called Paul Murphy, who, if you wiki data warehousing, he and Barry Devlin wrote the papers back in the mid 80s that founded data warehousing as an area of endeavor. And so I defined their telco data warehouse, and which is still the current model that they use now. And I also worked on their capital markets data warehouse model, their insurance data warehouse model, their healthcare, and their banking data warehouse model. And following IBM, then a few years later, I went to version 1 and I set up their business intelligence and data warehousing practice. And after about 5 months of kickstarting that, then I went to RBC Cap Markets in 2010, in September of 2010, and I acted as the UK risk and regulatory reporting architect. Um, I completely overhauled this system for doing capital adequacy calculations, and I totally overhauled all of their ETL and also all of their models. Their batch was originally running in 20 hours. I got it running down to, um, got the runtime down to 4 hours. It was consuming an awful lot less in the way of processing power as well because I'd rationalized the ETL. It was also creating a good deal more reports too. So it was a good case of doing more with less. Um, After RBC Cap Markets, then in around about 2015 to 2019, I was kind of acting as enterprise architect in LV. I did a whole load of things. I was a kind of solution architect, stroke data architect. I did a Guidewire implementation where I took out their current policy administration and billing administration systems and put in this off-the-shelf product called Guidewire. I also did their first large-scale Azure implementation. I set up the entire Azure infrastructure for them and created a target repository, and then did all of the ETL in a combination of I think it was Hive orchestrated using Data Factory version 1 and then subsequently version 2. Let me see. So generally I've worked predominantly in capital markets, but I've also done a lot of telco and more recently a lot of insurance. I've done healthcare, e-commerce. I've basically straddled most verticals. So really anywhere where there's a large amount of data that needs to be structured and understood and insight extracted from it, that's my sweet spot. I'm totally technology agnostic as well. I'm very acquainted with both classic on-prem technologies and also cloud-hosted technologies, and more particularly distributed technologies like the Hadoop project. And I know pretty much all aspects of the Hadoop project and have used most aspects of it over time. Okay, so that's my work to date. Tech I've used. In classic terms, I've used every single ETL suite out there at one stage or another. Like that's Ab Initio, it's Informatica, it's Data Stage, it's OWB, ODI, Oracle Warehouse Builder, Oracle Data Integrator. I've also used SSIS, RS, or Integration Server actually from Microsoft. I've also crafted my own ETL scripts in Python, in Hive, in R, in Perl, in C, in SQL, and I'm pretty au fait with the whole ETL world. I've also used every single RDBMS out there, all of the main ones anyway. And in terms of NoSQL, I've used Cassandra, I've used Mongo, HBase, all of the classic NoSQL ones that are part of the Hadoop project. I've done a lot of data modeling as well, and I've also done quite a good deal of machine learning stuff of late, and many years ago as well. And I know pretty much every single business intelligence tool that's out there too. I've used most of them at some stage or another. Yeah, so what else? In terms of DevOps then, I've been using Docker and Kubernetes quite a lot in the Azure environment. I also have experience with Chef, Ansible, Jenkins, all of those DevOpsy typed frameworks. I've also set up DevOps ops environments where I do continuous integration, continuous development, where I have infrastructure as code as well. Okay, so that's tech I've used. It's all listed on my CV, so I'm very very happy to answer your questions about it. War stories. Okay, generally speaking, I've been asked to talk a little bit about projects where I've had successes, projects where I've had failures. So the biggest issues that I encounter are generally not technical. Usually I find that I can solve most technical problems, and if I can't, there's some guy out in Stack Overflow who can. So, technical stuff really isn't an issue. Usually I find the issues are cultural, and I usually find that they are related to the siloed nature of established organizations. And so, you'll have your business guys and you'll have your IT guys, and they exist in two very separate worlds. And they kind of get a little bit shirty if people straddle across those worlds. Also within IT, you have a whole series of silos. You've got your infrastructure guys, you've got your networking guys, you've got your security guys, your DBAs, your application developers, and these guys all exist in silos as well. Um, as an individual, professionally, I like to straddle all silos. I like to understand the business problem, and I also like to own and understand pretty much all aspects of the technical solution as well. And so, being able to do that is key to me. Um, Being able to properly operate in any given scenario. So I've got two examples of war stories. An incident where I tried something and it really worked out well, and an incident where I adopted a particular approach and it absolutely fluffed up. So the thing that went really well was an exercise I called pipe cleaning. And it was an exercise I undertook in LV. And LV had undertaken with Ernst & Young to do the Skywire implementation. And Ernst & Young, being a consultancy, were trying to get as many bums on seats as they possibly could. And anyway, they really heavily peopled this project, and I felt that there was way too many people. And what we were ultimately trying to do was very simple. And they created this fog by having loads of meetings about meetings and requirement gathering sessions and all this stuff that I thought was totally unnecessary. So what I proposed was taking me and my team. We'd spend about a week, maybe a week and a half, and we'd stand up absolutely all aspects of the end-to-end solution. The new Guidewire policy administration system, the billing system, and the sources, and also the reporting layer, and the enterprise data warehouse. We'd stand up everything and we'd pump transactions through and report against them. And we did this within about 10 days or so, and it completely neutered EY's contention that they needed loads of bums on seats and that this was a big job, because it really wasn't. And it also provided a framework that we could build out the entire solution against. Now, and that really worked well, and LV were very grateful, and EY, I think, were probably very annoyed, and I'm sure there's probably a poster of me with the target on it in EY. But yeah, it was an example of something working out. An example of something not working out was unfortunately with Hyperion X, who were a data-based company, a data offshoot of Hyperion. And they wanted to get into big data, but like a lot of companies, they didn't really have in my mind, a clear justification to do that. They didn't have the 3 V's that you associate with big data: the velocity, the variance, or the volume. And so I thought the best way of me articulating the proper direction for them to go in was by doing a whole series of POCs. And I wanted to concentrate on proving things, the direction that we should take out using these POCs, and concentrate on the technology. So what I elected to do was to have somebody else do the shareholder interaction. and the overall communication with the outside world, while I kind of busied myself with the techniques of everything. And it was a big mistake, because I essentially lost my avenue of communication with the stakeholders, and my messages ended up getting summarized to the point of being complete garbage by the individual who was meant to be just acting as a channel for my thoughts. And very quickly, the whole thing just became a complete mess. And I realized how important it was to maintain continual communication with the stakeholders and also ownership of the communication channel, particularly as I was trying to set out a strategy for the organization in data terms. Okay, so that's war stories. Now, ways of working. So I'm very delivery orientated, and I favor agile frameworks, and there are scenarios in which delivery occurs frequently. And I also favor implementing, a DevOps type methodology of continuous integration and continuous development. I always try and develop roadmaps which deliver business value as early as possible. And I try to have the business drive solutions rather than tax considerations drive them. So that's ways of working. Oh, and I also like non-hierarchical types of organizations. And I always try and create like a sort of Darwinian scenario where it's survival of the fittest in terms of ideas. So, like what I say, even though I'm a kind of experienced, I could be talking through my hat, I'm frequently wrong. And even at this stage, it's maybe not something I should be saying. But yeah, I just like having parity of esteem across all of the people in my team. And, it's coming up with the best ideas really, and people being able to, it being a kind of caring and sharing environment as well. So I guess that brings me on to my ideal role and why Redkite. So, based on my recent experiences with Hyperion X, I would say that my ideal role has to be business facing, and it has to be delivery orientated. I have to have full ownership of the business problem, and the business problem to technical solution conversion. I have to have full ownership of that. And I like environments where I have where I can learn and grow and be stretched. And I also like environments where sometimes I kind of feel, geez, I don't know whether we can really achieve this, where I sort of feel a little bit tense about stuff. Um, so in terms of Redkite then, one of the things I really like about it is it seems to have placed data at the center of everything. And that's the way I've done everything from the get-go. And so I think the world is coming around to my way of thinking here. And the other thing I like about it is that it's a startup, and I really like startups. And larger organizations, there's a lot of places to hide in, and you can find that the work rate is really inhibited by meaningless meetings about meetings. And with a startup, the emphasis is on delivery, and there's no place to hide. And I just think it's a more honest and open environment. Um, what else? Yeah, you also consult across multiple verticals. So I really like working across many different types of industry and solving kind of quasi-similar problems, but working with different data and different business problems. So now I'm going to go on and I'm going to talk about Kimball modeling. So I'm going to probably put this in a separate video